first thank and express my deep gratitude to Roberta for her most generous introduction, and I also want to thank the organizers for this opportunity for hosting the meeting. I know that Shaun Gallagher would have loved to be here, and he sends his greeting. So it doesn't work. No. Perhaps I should just bring it closer. That's better. Okay. I know that he would have loved to be here as well, and so I should kind of convey greetings from him. So the focus of my talk is basically social cognition, and the way I'm going to frame it is also in order to allow for some discussion with Vittorio and Corrado. I'm basically trying to make the case that there is some potential conflict between simulationism and what I take to be a phenomenological understanding of empathy. So I'm very much looking forward to the discussion that will hopefully ensue from my talk. In recent years, much of the discussion of the nature of social cognition has taken place within the framework of the so-called theory of mind debate. The expression theory of mind is generally used as shorthand for our ability to attribute mental states to self and others, and to interpret, predict, and explain behavior in terms of mental states such as intentions, beliefs, and desires. Now, although it was originally assumed that it was the possession and use of a theory that provided the individual with the capacity to attribute mental states, the contemporary debate is split on the issue and is generally considered to be a dispute between two views. On the one side, we find the theory of mind, and on the other, the simulation theory of mind. Whereas the theory argues that our understanding of others mainly engages detached intellectual processes, moving by inference from one belief to the other, the simulation theory of mind denies that our understanding of others is primarily theoretical in nature, and maintains that we on the contrary use our own mind as a model when understanding the minds of others. Now, on closer considerations, this neat division turns out to be an oversimplification, not only because of the existence of several hybrid theories, but also because neither of the main positions are theoretical monoliths. Theorists are basically split on the issue of whether the theory in question is innate and modularized, or whether it's acquired in the same manner as ordinary scientific theories. As for the simulationists, some claim that the simulation in question involves the exercise of conscious imagination and deliberative inference. Some insist that the simulation, although explicit, is non-inferential in nature. And finally, there are those who argue that the simulation, rather than being explicit and conscious, is implicit and subpersonal. Now, despite these added nuances, there is nevertheless still widespread consensus regarding the limited number of options. A satisfactory account of social cognition must be provided by simulation theory, by theory, or by some hybrid between the two. There are no other options available. I think this orthodoxy has been challenged by several authors in recent years who have argued that the forced choice between theory and simulation theory is a false choice. Not only has it been argued that there are other options available, and that in particular the phenomenological tradition contains highly perspicuous insights concerning the nature of social cognition, but it has also been argued that the simulation theory and theory, although frequently depicted as quite opposed accounts of the basic nature of social cognition, actually share a number of crucial but questionable assumptions. Now, in a footnote added in a late Polish translation of his 1918 dissertation on Bergson, Ingarden makes the following observation. I have attempted an English translation here, but this is the original text. At the time when this treatise was written, extensive discussions took place regarding the so-called empathy, a notion that had been proposed by the psychologizing German aesthetes like, for instance, Theodor Lipps. A number of phenomenologists such as Gallagher, Scheler, Stein, and later also Husserl participated in this discussion, and it became increasingly clear that the classical theory of empathy, which considered it a kind of projection of one's own psychical states into foreign bodies, had to be replaced by a theory that took empathy to be a special kind of perception of the psychical states as they are manifest in the bodily expression. Now, by the end of this paper, I hope to have made it clear what the central core of this alternative amounts to. In the first brief section, I will present some of the central ideas in Theodor Lips's account of empathy. This background is important since it was an account that all the phenomenologists to various degrees distanced themselves from. I'll then move on to a brief discussion of the notion of empathy we find in Scheler, Stein and Husserl, and I will then finally discuss the way in which this basic take on empathy was taken up and modified by Schütz. And I will conclude then by briefly considering a possible objection that might be raised against the phenomenological proposal. So that's basically the outline of